Hello everyone, so this is Robin again, teaching this AZ-103 Azure class. So this part we get in our module 4 on virtual network, so which will be the most important uh, part module in the AZ-103. In the exam, it takes up to 25 to 35% of the entire exam. And module-wise, even though virtual network is only one module, but the associated module, there's a lot as well. All right, so yeah, get to the module overview. So this one will be uh, again divided into two parts. The first part is virtual network, and we talk about the IP addressing and endpoints. The second one we'll talk about Azure DNS and network security group. So lesson one on virtual networks. So this lesson will be in this six parts. So we'll talk about the network components and what is virtual network, subnets, how to implement a virtual network. We'll be demonstrating how to create a virtual network in both the UI and using PowerShell, and also how to associate multiple NIC with the virtual machines, also with PowerShell as well. So first, let's get to the Azure networking components. So by now you should have the understanding of the cloud benefits over on-prem environment. Everything's fast. You can deploy within seconds, not really seconds, but minutes, and you can purchase them in minutes. Okay, and there will be a extended of your local on-prem environment. So for small and medium-sized companies, which might not have the expertise to maintain their own robust infrastructure, or moving to the cloud, it's to them it's very appealing, but they lack the resource and expertise. So once the resource are moved to Azure, they require the same networking functionality as their on-prem deployment, and in specific scenarios require some level of network isolation. So Azure networking components offers a range of functionalities and services that can help organizations design and build cloud infrastructure services that can meet their requirements. So Azure has many networking components. All these nice services listed here are within our scope of this AZ-103 course. So this including virtual network, load balancer, Azure DNS, express route, VPN gateway, application gateway, traffic manager, network watcher, and content delivery network. So majorly we'll be covering the virtual network and Azure DNS in this module. The rest will scattered into other modules along the way. All right. Actually, the content delivery network is one of the last module. We're going to introduce this idea. All right. So virtual network. You should treat the Azure Virtual Network, or we call that in short VNet, as a representation of your own network in the cloud. It's a logical isolation of the Azure cloud dedicated to your own subscription. You can use the VNet to provision and manage virtual private networks, VPNs in Azure, and optionally link the VNets with each other with other VNets in Azure, or with your on-premise IT infrastructure to create hybrid or cross-premise solutions. So each VNet you create has its own CIDR block and can be linked to their VNets and on-premises network if the CIDR blocks do not overlap. So this is very important. I may stress this more than 3 times in this course, but it's very important for the deployment and planning before you're using Azure services. And you also have the control of DNS server settings for VNets and segmentation of the VNet into the subnets. You can use the virtual network to first create a dedicated virtual private cloud-only VNet, because sometimes you don't require cross-premises configuration for a solution. When you create a VNet, your services and VMs within your VNet can communicate directly and securely with each other in the cloud. You can still configure endpoint connections for the VMs and services that require internet communication, as part of your solution. Secondly, it's a securely extend of your data center with VNets. You can build traditional site-to-site VPNs or point-to-site to securely scale your data center capacity. The site-to-site VPNs use the IPsec to provide a secure connection between your cropped VPN gateway and Azure. And third, it's enable the hybrid cloud infrastructure. scenario. So the VNets give you the flexibility to support a range of hybrid cloud solution. You can securely connect the cloud-based application to any type of on-premise system, such as a mainframe or a Unix system. All right. So I said a lot of terminology here. So if you remember on my first lesson when I introduced this class, I said you must have some on-premises knowledge to learn this. So if a lot of the terminology may be strange to you. So like what's a VPN? And VPN will have point to sign set to that, side to side and all that. So if all those are new to you, you have no clear idea how networking works, uh, please do a quick 20 minutes video somewhere else on YouTube or any other channel to learn about that if you're really an IT guy. But if you're really familiar with everything, we can continue because I don't want to explain everything, stop and then say what's a side to side, what's a point to side, and all that. Right, and talk about subnets. So any virtual network or VNets can be segmented into one or more subnets. So this happens when you first create a virtual network. Subnets provide the logical divisions with your network. Subnets can help improve your security, increase your performance, and make it easier to manage the network. So each subnet contains a range of IP address that fall with the virtual network address space. Each subnet must have a unique address range specified in their CIDR format. This address range cannot overlap with other subnets in the virtual network in the same subscription. Remember, the same subscription. If you have multiple, it doesn't matter. And yeah, it's very important to plan your subnets carefully. So you should consider the following. First, the service requirements. So each service directly deployed into virtual network has specific requirements for routing and types of traffic that must be allowed into the in or out of the subnets. A service may require or create their own subnet, so there must be enough unallocated space, unused space for them to do so. For example, if you connect a virtual network to an on-premises network using the Azure VPN gateway, the virtual network must have a dedicated subnet for that gateway. Second is virtual appliance. The Azure routes network traffic between all subnets in a virtual network. By default, you can override Azure default routing to prevent Azure route them between between subnets, or to route traffic between subnets through a virtual network appliance. So if you require that traffic between resources in the same virtual network flows through a network virtual appliance, deploy a resource to different subnets. Third, a service endpoint. You can limit access to the resource such as Azure storage account or Azure the SQL database or specific subnets with the virtual network service endpoint. And furthermore, you can deny access to the resource from the internet. You may create multiple subnets and enable service endpoint for some subnets, but not others. And last but not least, so network security groups, you can associate 0 or what excuse me 0 or 1 network security group to, or we call for short NSG, to each subnet in a virtual network. You can associate the same or different network security group to each subnet. Each network security group contains rules which allow or deny traffic to and from source and destination. So it's a lot of things to take in, but again, as I said, if you have the experience managing the on-prem, you should be familiar with how things work on-prem. So it's essentially the same, but with more features for you to leverage. And by default, when you create a virtual network, it will ask you to create a subnet as well. That part is in the UI. If you've done this PowerShell, it's not necessary. You can create a virtual network with no subnets, but if they cannot function without the subnets. And yeah, implementing the virtual network. So I think I forgot something here. So oh yeah, so Azure reserve the first 3 IP address and the last IP address in each subnet address range. So this will be demonstrated later. So all your virtual network after you deployed, when you deploy the virtual machine, I don't know if you have noticed so far, if you follow our course before in the virtual machine part, if you take a close look into all the settings, right, you notice the internal IP address for that machine does not start with, for example, 10.0, 192.168.0.2 or .3, .1. It starts with .5 or .4 for some reason, right? Let's start with the first one. It was reserved by Azure, right? So that part you have to know because this will be on the exam. I know this because this was asked to me during the exam, saying, okay, how many address space is available to you? You know, they gave me a setting, so I have to calculate. Okay, the first three was taken, so there are three virtual network, this -9 and all that. So this will be part of the exam, all right? Okay, so you can create new uh, virtual networks at any time. You can also add virtual networks when you create a virtual machine. Either way, you will need to define the address space and at least one subnet. By default, you can create up to 50 virtual network per subscription per region, and you can increase the limit by 500 by contacting the Azure support. So this part, if you again, it's a refresh, a recall, and recap to our previous lesson. So each region have their have their limited uh, resource to use. So it's not within the itself. It's just okay. They can only take 50 networks. It's just to you, each subscription or each tenant, it gives you 50 by default, and you can request to increase more. However, if you request a lot, say from here 50 to the maximum 500, right? They will not be proved immediately. If you only want, I want to find more 53, 55, it will might be proved by the machine within minutes. But if you request to increase 10 times, I think the support engineer will contact you within 24 hours. If you select the service level A, the minimum impact. If you select service level C, they will contact really fast, like within an hour. Right. Okay. So again, be careful with overlapping address space. Okay. And yeah, now I'm gonna jump into our demonstration. So let me open up my account, Azure account. So we go to the virtual network, right? So we can create one real quick. And I can give the name. So this AZ-103 demo. It's not overlap. Okay, cool. You can change this, right? This is a default for you. You can change. I say I don't want 3, right? I want something different. So you can specify on your own, right? It doesn't have to follow the default one, and it doesn't have to be 16. You can be 24, right? So yeah, it's up to your choice. So we leave everything as default, right? Okay. And yeah, subscription resource group. Okay, we know we're familiar with everything. Okay, we select one we're already using. Right, so we're familiar with everything like here. Okay, there's a resource. Oh, same name. Demos 0201. Okay, and the location we select East US, or I just leave it. Let's select West US to separate. Okay, so subnet you can give the name or leave as default. Okay, and the address space again you can specify on your own or leave as default. So here we leave everything as default. The rest we do not talk it for now. So we will introduce the service endpoint and firewall later and DOS protection, but now we just leave it. Okay, and we hit create. And I do encounter sometimes it takes you 20 seconds to deploy, sometimes it takes you 4 to 5 minutes to deploy. So we're gonna just let it run and we do the PowerShell part. Right, so first we create a virtual network. Oh, sorry, my bad. I don't have a resource group created in the beginning, so pardon me for a few seconds. So resource group. resource group 1, we call it East. Let's create this one East US then. This should be done real quick, within seconds. Yes. Right, let me make sure it's there. Okay, now let's run the same command. So you notice here, I only create a virtual network, but I have no subnets. That's what I mean by you can create a virtual network without subnet in PowerShell, but you cannot do so in the UI. Okay, let's create another one. Okay, let's see. And these two are not associated with each other at this moment, right? You notice we have to associate them together. Okay, so it is the provision part. Okay, it's provision. All right, so my VNet 2. That's the name is US, resource group is this one, address prefix is we leave the default. DNS server we didn't specify any. Okay, so now let's jump into this one we just provisioned in resource group. That's my VNets, and within I should have the subnets. Subnet, not really subnet. So you can see available address space 251. So there are 3 being reserved, right? So here you go. And the other one should be provisioned as well. Resource deployment successful, virtual network, go to resource. Yeah, so it's the same thing, right? So subnet, yeah, that's the one we have. All right. So yeah, we close this for now. So I want to show you something that's really cool before we jump into the next part. So let me choose my virtual network, so the lab VNets, and let me choose diagram. So actually I get a goosebump when I saw this. You see, this is my lab environment. I have a domain controller, client, SCCM, SharePoint server, everything deployed. This is the diagram, also topology for this virtual network environment, right? So at the NIC, network security group, it's IP address, this machine. So how is everything connected? They all connected to this virtual network, right? So of course this is a very standard deployment, but if imagine you are deploying a really large lab environment or something, you could have 2 or 3 NIC connect to the machine, right? Depending on the SKU of the machine. And you can have different network NIC, security group, etc., to it. So for but once the deployment get complicated, hard for you to grasp the idea, okay, what's my deployment at, or for you to pass on to the next IT guy, or for someone to manage when they start anew. But if you show them this diagram, it's very easy to understand everything. Okay. All right. So for convenient purpose, I need to delete this because I don't want to get myself confused. So let me delete this resource group. Oh, okay, missed an R there. Okay, let me jump back to our PowerPoint. So yeah, as I mentioned before, so if the topology gets complicated, you might have more NIC connect to your network, right? So yeah, you can create virtual machines in the Azure and attach multiple NIC to the VMs. So having multiple NIC is a required for many network virtual appliances such as application delivery, WAN optimization solutions, etc. And having multiple NIC also provide more network traffic management functionality, including isolation of traffic between a front-end NIC and a back-end NIC, or separation of data plane traffic from management plane traffic. So there are any ways why you need a different NIC, right? So this figure here above, not really above, on the right side, uh, shows a VM with 3 NIC, right? Each connect to a different subnet. The order of the NIC from inside the VM will be random and could also change across Azure infrastructure updates. Remember, it is Azure infrastructure updates, not you update on your own manually. However, the IP address and the corresponding Ethernet and MAC address will remain the same. So this is very important because we don't change that, so there's no disruption to your services. For example, assume Ethernet 1 has IP address 10. Here is 10.2.2.22, and MAC address is the digit number. And after the Azure infrastructure update happened and reboot, it could be changed to Ethernet 2, but the IP pairing will remain the same. The IP and the MAC address will remain the same. But when a restart is initiated by you or anyone, the NIC order will remain the same. So I don't know if you get a grasp of what I talk about. So the IP and MAC address won't change, but the NIC, the name of the network will change. Not the name, the order of the network may change, but it changes. Doesn't matter your service disruption, just the name will change, right? So the address for each NIC on each VM must be in a separate and multiple in a subnet, and the multiple NIC on a single VM can each be assigned address that are in the same subnet. The VM size determines the number of the NIC that you can create for a VM, right? So you can look that up in the portal or in the website, Azure website. So some support 2, some support 3, so it's different, right? Now I'm gonna do the demonstration. So for convenience purpose, I might just do this in the PowerShell. So let me first, I guess, I create a resource group. So for this one, so I called it my resource group. Okay, so we'll leave yeah, central OS is okay. All right, just make sure it's there. My resource group, fantastic. Let me clear this. Okay, first we create a virtual network. We create a virtual network named VNet and a subnet named my subnet front end. Right, this is the name prefix. Right, so you can do these two part together. So the one I demonstrated before is separate, but you can do two together as well. Right, so you may ask why don't I create a virtual machine first? So we are demonstrating the correct order of a deployment. So you cannot have a machine go to your office and connect, right? You have to plan your network first, all the switches being connected, your network guy, make sure everything's okay. Then you bring the machine and connect, right? So you first create the network. It should be pretty fast. Okay, so if you're interested, you can read all this. But anyway, this is just a JSON format. You can tell you the parameters, the schema of everything. So yeah, a lot of them you will notice is none because I didn't specify them. Right, so now we create a subnet for the backend traffic. Right, so we name it my subnet backend. All right, so we create this one. Okay, it's pretty fast for that. And we'll create an NSG, so a network security group. All these are prerequisite of creating a virtual machine. So if you have to know, so this is the actual correct order. The one even we demonstrated before, creating a virtual machine, that's only dedicated to the machine. But on a broad view, high-level overview, you need to have the network set up first before you do this. And we configure the NIC. So we first do the first NIC. Right? Use the command AZ network NIC create. So this was first one, and the demonstration is for multiple, right? So I will create another one as well, just when this one finished. And the last part is we provision the virtual machine inside the network environment we just created. Come on, little one. Okay. Now we create the my NIC2. See. Yeah, so you may ask for, all the codes and everything. So I do have a friend suggest like I can start I do have a GitHub account, but I never really fully use that, and I think I may have forgot the password somehow. So I will try to uh, reset my password and upload all the template, if you call the template I used in this demonstration. So which part am I on before? And I see two. Okay, now we provision the virtual machine. All right, so the final step. Right, so in this restore group, in this virtual network, the image will use 2013 data center size, that's this DS3-32, the user and password. And NIC, we associate NIC1 and NIC2 to this virtual machine. Okay, this could take a while. That's the virtual machine, right? I expect to be 3 to 5 minutes or even 10 minutes. So we leave it to deploy. All right. So the way if you do this in the uh, the portal. So if you have a virtual machine, right? Let's say just browse into one of my virtual machine, my domain controller here. The networking, you see, I have a network interface here. You can attach more, right? I don't have anyone here, so you can create a network interface and attach it here. So that's the way to do it. So it's very convenient. So or you can just create a network interface in here. I have so many as well. But you can see the two I provisioned here already. They are not attached to any network at the moment. Okay, you can add one here. We'll open the blade for you. So names, virtual network, if select one. And you may notice why it's not everything listed because it must be within the region, right? If not within the region, they're not listed, right? And resource group, subscription, location, yeah, you have to choose this. All right, so let me close this. Check if it's running. So go to my virtual machine. It's not there. That's okay. So uh, yeah. So anyway, we leave it there. Okay, and we can jump back to our PowerPoint and talk about the IP address and endpoints. So let me take a time. So this is 12:04. Let's go back at 12:07. See if it's been finished. So lesson 2, IP address and endpoints. Right, so yeah, the overview we're going to cover here. So the IP address. So you can assign IP addresses to Azure resources to communicate with other resources you have, your on-premise network, and the internet. There are two types of IP address you can use in Azure. So the virtual network can contain both public and private IP address space. All right, so the private IP address used within the Azure virtual network and your on-premise network when you're using a VPN gateway or express route circuit to extend your network to Azure. So treat Azure as a part of your own environment. Or public IP address is used for communication with the internet, including the Azure public-facing services. So you may notice that when we connect to our virtual machines, right, in previous sessions, we're using the public IP address for that virtual machine. Or when you're hosting a website, you need a public IP address to do it. But if it's internal, it's okay. So the IP address, of course, can also be statically assigned to or dynamically assigned to your resource. So static IP address do not change and are the best for certain situations like a DNS name resolution, IP address-based security models, access certificate linked to an IP address, firewall rules allow or deny traffic using IP address ranges, or role-based VMs such as domain controller and DNS server. And speak of which, I have uh, asked by people in my Chinese class, the one I show you on 51.cto, that website, when I upload the video. So they post question like, they created these virtual machines like you saw here, and let me just show you real quick. They try to deploy a lab like I did in here with so many virtual machines, though they can practice domain controller mail, although mail is not recommended since Azure block port 25, client and everything. So, but he asked, my machines are in the same subnet, within the same virtual, the same network, same region, whatever, it's the same, but I'm not able to join my machine to my domain controller. They cannot join the domain for some reason. They can ping each other. He has turned on the firewall, but it cannot join the machine. So why is that? So this is a very common mistake. So on-prem, you might think, okay, this is a very simple thing, right? I just specify the DNS server. But again, this virtual machine here, you can now specify the DNS server within the machine. If you open the common way, right, you open for your network and you try to do from there, change the DNS server, uh, that doesn't work. All right, it still doesn't connect to your domain controller. Doesn't matter how you specify the primary, secondary. You specify third party like Google 8.8, 888 doesn't work. You have to do it from Azure. You have to change the DNS server for that machine in Azure. Then you will be able to join the domain controller. So that's one of the few questions I got asked. I even saw some guys doing demo videos on YouTube. They like how to join how to machine join how to domain join a machine in Azure. They just join, but they never show you that you have to change the DNS record, a DNS server in Azure. Okay. Anyhow, so let's see something else. Sorry, I have to tell. So it looks like this one's been provisioned. So still shows creating, but it should be running now. Uh, but let's see. We do connect. I almost forgot. This is for virtual network. So we go to the virtual network. Shit, which one I create for this again? So this one, yeah, my resource group. So we see the diagram again. You see, it's fun, right? So different than the other one I show. You have one VM, which has two NIC connect to the front end to the virtual network. The backend is not really connected to anything at this moment, but yeah, that's my demo to let you know how everything works. Okay, we can safely close this now. And yeah, so as the best practices for the IP address, so you may decide to separate dynamically and statically assign the IP resource into different subnets, and IP address are never managed from within a virtual machine. So again, they are never managed from within a virtual machine. Doesn't matter how you change it. All right. Okay. So there's the table here for you. So we have their public IP address, IP address isolation, and dynamic or static. So a public IP address resource can be associated with virtual machines, virtual network interface, virtual network. I'm not wrong. It's also a virtual network interface, internet-facing load balancer, VPN gateways, application gateways, all that. And Azure provide an IP address dynamically assigned, or you can assign the IP address yourself manually, which is static. Right. So here's the table. Just take a screenshot or save it somewhere else for your convenient purpose when you do a deployment. Okay, private IP. So same as the public IP address, a private IP address resource can be associated with virtual machines and all that we just talked about, and you can assign them manually. Yeah. So private IP is allocated from the address range of the virtual network subnet when the resource is deployed. So what dynamic? So the Azure, when it says dynamic, Azure assign the next available Azure assign the next unused, unreserved IP address in the subnet address range. For example, Azure assign 10.0.0.10 to a new resource. If the 10.0.0.4 to 10.0.0.9 are already taken statically, so you select and assign any unused IP address in the subnet range. For example, if a subnet address is again 10.0.0.0 and address 10.0.4 to 9 is already assigned to other resource, you can assign between starting from 10 to 2 point to uh, 10.0.0.254. Yeah, the last one is broadcast. You cannot use that one. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna retrieve a static IP address information and remove a static private IP address. So I'm just gonna use the the network I deployed just before, so I shouldn't really close that anyway. So let me retrieve this information first. My NIC2. So yeah, it retrieved the information, and you can see here the private IP allocate method is dynamic, right? So it asks, I think a demonstration says remove a static IP address, right? So remove means change it to dynamic. So this is dynamic. Let's change it to static, right? So let me just change this real quick. Change my code real quick, and we copy things to here. Okay. It should be done real quick. All right, so it's finished. We can see now its IP allocation method is static. Okay, that's a demonstration for that one. So let's jump into the next one. So service endpoints, which is quite important. So a virtual network VNet service endpoint provides the identity of your virtual network to the Azure service. So once the service endpoints are enabled in your virtual network, you can secure Azure service resource to your virtual network by adding a virtual network rule to the resource. Currently, Azure service traffic from virtual network uses public IP address as source IP address. With service endpoints, service traffic switch to use virtual network private IP address as the source of their IP address when accessing the Azure service from a virtual network. So this switch allows you to access a service without the need for reserved public IP address used in IP firewall, because there's also a limitation of how many public IP address you can have in this region, right? So you don't want to use them all. If it's absolutely necessary to it's an internet facing, of course you need to reserve one for that. So what's the point of using a service endpoint? So first, it's improved security for your Azure service resource. The VNet private address space can be overlapping and so cannot be used to uniquely identify traffic originating from your VNets. Service endpoints provide the ability to secure Azure service resource to your virtual network by extending the VNet identity to the service. Once the service endpoints are enabled in your virtual network, you can secure a Azure service resource to your virtual network by adding a virtual network rule to the resource. This will provide you improved security by fully removing the public internet access to the resource and allow traffic only from your virtual network. The second one is optimal routing for Azure service traffic from your virtual network. Again, currently any routes in your virtual network that force internet traffic to your premises and or virtual appliance, also known as force tunneling, if you're familiar with the term, also force Azure service traffic to take the same route as the internet traffic service endpoints. So the service endpoint provide optimal routing for your traffic. So the next one is endpoints always take service traffic directly from your virtual network to the service on the Microsoft Azure backbone network. Keeping traffic on the Azure backbone network allows you to continue auditing and monitoring outbound internet traffic from your virtual network through force tunneling without impacting any of the services. What is Azure backbone service we'll introduce in later sessions. And also it's a simple to set up with less management overhead, all the cloud benefits. You no longer need to reserve public IP address in your virtual networks to secure resource through IP firewall. There will no NAT or gateway device required to set up the service endpoints. Service endpoints are configured through a simple click on the subnet, and no additional or maintaining endpoints actions needed. So in general, see, with the service endpoint, the source IP address of the virtual network in the subnet for services traffic switch from using public address to using private IP address, IPv4. So existing Azure service firewall rules using Azure public IP address will stop working with the switch. Please ensure your Azure service firewall rule allow for this switch before setting up service endpoints. You may also experience temporary interruption somehow to service traffic from the subnet while configuring the service endpoint. But that won't take too long. So, but again, if you want minimal damage, not really damage, interruption, or you have an SLA, do it in the non-working hour. So these are the available service endpoints in Azure. So they're adding more actually compared to the snapshots here. So there's more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. But yeah, just all these are generally available in all the Azure regions. So I think I have that opens for you somewhere. Again, it's in Chinese, my bad. So let me switch it to English. Where's English? Oh, the English is in Chinese, so let's say to America. Yeah. So everything here, you can see there's more now, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are 11 now. There, you can see also generally available in all regions, right? So everything you can deploy. Okay. And yeah, secure access to the storage endpoints. So uh, this step is necessary to restrict network access to Azure service, well, varies across services. For accessing a storage account, you need to use the firewall and virtual network blade to add the virtual network that will have access. Right, so we will do the demo on this and conclude our session for this. So let me again jump back to our, yeah, here, let me close this and go to our virtual network. Let me go to the resource group first because I keep forgetting which one I need to deploy. I think it's new test or which one. So yeah, I'm going to do the demonstration or the storage account. So as you see here, I may jump too quick. So I'm going to use a storage account and in the subnet service and create a subnet service endpoint and secure the storage to the service endpoint. Okay, so go to the storage account first. I think I just used one I already have. I forget if this is the one I have. All right, this is the one I have. Great. So we go to firewall and virtual networks. So we choose select the networks, right? So we add existing or create a new one. You see there are 3 here, right? So they must be in the same region. If they're in the same resource group but not the same region, it doesn't work. So we select the new test. Select this one, right? So default, yeah, I only have 1. So we just add. All right, and save. So now we go to the storage account where we have files. have the access key. We use the connection string to access this one, right? We use the storage explorer. So there is a one on portal now, which is preview, but uh, we don't use this one yet, right? We use the on-prem one. So let me try to connect that using a connection string. Yeah, here. AZ-103 backup demo. Okay, and connect. Oh, my bad. I need to click next, not connect. So this, again, you have to notice, I keep making this mistake. You don't click connect, you click next, and you click connect, all right? Files. See, unable to retrieve child resource. This is because we set up the rules to restrict this, right? So if we remove that, so we remove the where is that, the firewall, and okay, it's in the storage accounts again. We ghost Azure backup files. This one. Oh, which one I associate with? I forgot. Oh, it's Azure Web Backup again, I think. So we do the firewall network rules. We delete this one, remove it. Okay, and save. Okay. Haven't happened yet, but we can do a refresh. Still, it's not up yet, but you get the idea how this works now. So even with the connect string, if you set up the rule, it cannot access it can only be accessed from that virtual network. So yeah, I exceed my time a little bit, 2 minutes. So thanks for watching, and we'll continue our sessions on Azure DNS in the next lesson.